Hello. Just getting everybody live. We're due to start our introduction to This Is Our Victory at 11:30. So just give everybody time to join us before I get started. It's 11:29 on my clock at the moment, so I'll wait till 11:30. Welcome. My name's Zoe Viney. I'm the film curator at Wessex Film and Sound Archive. You might be following us on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're following us from. Hello and welcome. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get properly started. If you're watching us on Facebook, you'll see in the description of the video or the live session I'm putting up, there's a link to the film on YouTube. The film will be going live on YouTube at 11:45, so I will make sure I stop speaking in plenty time to allow you to click your link. So if you're on YouTube, that's fine. The link will work the same and you'll be able to head straight over there and then enjoy the film screening. I will be introducing the collection and some of the content, and also I will give you some of the detail of the film that you're going to see today. But just for information, in the YouTube description of the film, there is a list of all of the films that are contained in the compilation. I will try and answer any questions you have during the live session, but just bear with me. This is the first time. I've run a session like this before, so hopefully the technology will work for me. Some of you may have seen some of our Wessex Film and Sound Archive footage earlier today when Hampshire County Council marked the 75th anniversary of VE Day with a special film using film from Wessex Film and Sound Archive to remember the efforts of the armed forces and wider community in helping achieve victory in Europe. So some of you may have heard of Wessex Film and Sound Archive before. I'm guessing if you follow us on YouTube and Facebook, you have a fairly good understanding of our content. Basically, my post, I'm curator of film, and my post is funded with support from the British Film Institute, awarding funds from the National Lottery. And I've been in post since 2016. And we've done lots of exciting projects during the course, during that time. Last year, we worked on a project called Working in Shadows, which some of you may have seen us talking about or even attended. We had some films from Elliot's of Newbury, and we took the films around the region and screened them with a live musical accompaniment, which was really fun. One of the other projects we've worked on is our Archive Film for Reminiscence project, and we had compilations of material from 1930 all the way up to the 1970s, and we have those as DVDs which can be loaned out to care homes and community organisations. What's really great is during the course of our 100 Days of Film project, which you may have seen going out on our YouTube and Facebook channel, that we are making that available for people to watch at home free of charge. So if you're interested in doing some reminiscence activities, do subscribe to our YouTube channel because there's content going up every day at 9 AM and our reminiscence packs are going to be forming part of that. We also do work on educational resource boxes, so getting archive film into the curriculum as for kind of cross-curricular learning. And we also have a cinema tent, which in normal times we would take out to different locations across the region, and we would screen archive film within communities. This year, it's not going to be happening, but we will be back in action hopefully next year. So keep an eye out on our calendar for that. We also do a lot of ongoing online research and outreach even. And as you can imagine, in the challenging times we're facing at the moment, that's become more and more important. One of the things that we like to include in our programme during the course of the year are some events on site at Hampshire Record Office in Winchester. And we had planned to run this event as a film screening and exhibition that you would attend on site. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that. We're living in some really challenging times at the moment, but we hope you enjoy today's event. So some detail about Wessex Film and Sound Archive. We're a regional repository for film and sound items from across the old Wessex region. So that's Hampshire, Isle of Wight, Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, and Oxfordshire. And we have over 38,000 film and sound items, so it's quite a good sized collection. And of those 38,000, 12,000 are cine film. We did have someone count them for us. There's a lot of film content. And the sound recordings that we have are often things like oral histories, which can be a really fantastic resource for kind of dialect and also hearing people kind of recount their own memories. In the original version of the film, I had hoped to have some more oral histories kind of playing over the film footage, but we weren't able to get that in place before we kind of were all locked down. Many of the films that we have in the collection, or all of the films even, have been accessioned on the basis that they have some intrinsic historic value. So we collect them because they're historically important. Material in the collection covers everything from professional broadcast material, the work of cine clubs, family enthusiasts, prominent figures, but also just members of the public recording their own experiences. We've got beach holidays, we've got kind of questionable glimpses of the Titanic, remarkable journeys, pioneers in aviation, all sorts of different people recording history from the way that they were living it. We also represent a really varied geographical region encompassing the home counties, major ports, and historically significant stretch of coastline, and a range of major towns and cities, and a hugely diverse rural landscape. So it's a really, really interesting and unique collection. As you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges we face as an archive working with moving image, like lots of other film archives up and down the country, one of the biggest challenges we have is ensuring we have the best quality copy of a film that we hold based on the technology available to us at any given time. A lot of the films that you're seeing, of course, during the course of the 100 Days of Film project are films that we had copied nearly 10 years ago. And we were able to kind of upload them really speedily to YouTube when we realized that we weren't going to be able to kind of access the collection on site for some time. This year, which is really exciting, we're anticipating the arrival of a film scanner. And this is going to be fantastic because it's going to open up so much of the collection for us to be able to kind of get better quality copies of, but also to be able to share them more readily with you. So at the moment, we have quite a long, convoluted process to go through in order to obtain copies. But once we have a film scanner, that's going to make everything a lot easier. And I'm looking forward to sharing some kind of crystal clear images with you later this year. So today's films and the people who made them. Today's film screening includes a variety of material from all over the region that we cover. So not just Hampshire, parts of Wessex as well. We don't necessarily keep to modern boundaries. As you know, things do move around over time. What's interesting is that what an amateur filmmaker chose to record with their precious cine camera can tell us a lot about their background, but also about the world in which they lived. Amateur filmmaking in the early years of the 20th century was really, really different from the home movies that we take today. These days, as you'll know, if you have a smart device, we can take oodles and oodles of footage and edit it and kind of share it at will, really. We don't really have to think about it too much. And we can do it with really very little financial outlay, comparatively anyway. But before 1922, filmmaking really was only the preserve of very wealthy individuals who were able to obtain the technology and the film stock. It wasn't really set up on a large scale to allow ordinary members of the public to get involved, although it was recognised kind of in the early 1910s that amateurs did exist. It wasn't until 1922 when Pathé launched its 9.5mm film stock and camera, really brought down the costs considerably. 16mm came a year later, but from then on, it meant that a whole new raft of people were able to kind of pick up the camera and get cranking. It really opened up a whole world of opportunity for people to get recording. So just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the costs involved, in 1932, a low-end cine camera would cost about the same as 2 weeks' wages for a manual worker. But by the 1960s, the equivalent was only about a week's wages. So you can see over time, the technology got much more accessible and much more affordable for many more people. But there were lots of other costs too. So you didn't just have to buy yourself a cine camera. Once you bought the cine camera, you also had to buy a film stock and you had to pay to have it to develop. After it had been developed and you'd edited it, you'd have to then project it. So unless you owned your own projector, you'd either have to buy one, borrow one, or go use one elsewhere. So the costs could really mount up, and that made it quite an expensive pastime. So what people chose to record with what were really precious resources can really be quite telling. One of the challenges, particularly with wartime footage, and we hear this anecdotally as well as being supported by war records, is that film stock was actually really hard to come by during the course of the war, and colour film was particularly scarce. So when you see colour footage, it's always quite special, particularly from this period and earlier. We know that 16mm film stock and cameras were prioritised for military use during the war, and raw film stock was actually rationed. It meant that civilians had even more limitation imposed on their filmmaking, and it was just another item that was more difficult to obtain. To add to that, 16mm projectors were actually gathered up by the government to allow the government to go round to local communities. Over 100 mobile film units were kind of put together to go round and show films in kind of non-traditional venues, or I guess non-traditional community halls and those kind of places. Today's film screening has footage that was made during the war by all sorts of people, including chemists, politicians, jewelers, watchmakers, government organisations, but photographers, manufacturing firms, school teachers, bank managers, and horticulturists. So you can see there's a really broad array of people who are involved. They document their wartime experiences on the home front, but also their VE Day preparations. But film stock was scarce, so the film footage that we have of VE Day celebrations within our region is quite limited. We have lots of footage of the kind of home front kind of activities, and then kind of a selection of VE Day celebrations as well. You'll see footage in the film screening from a Mr. Shepherd of Parkstone in Poole. And he took footage of his family during the course of the war, and you see quite a few clips during the course of the compilation. He also has some very wonderful colour footage towards the end of the screening. There are clips of his family at the beginning trying on gas masks. They also filmed their VE Day preparations outside their chemist. And you kind of get the impression he saved the film stock for kind of what would be the victory celebrations, that he kept some back, because up to the point before victory was announced, he has produced a lot of black and white footage. We also get lots of some footage from Mr. Shepherd of Bournemouth in kind of full celebratory mode, which is really lovely. We also have this pattern of kind of a relaxed summer following the victory as well. So we have a number of different filmmakers who were kind of active during the war who filmed victory celebrations, but also then you get this period of them doing day trips and kind of family days out to the beach. This is kind of, while VE Day was only one day, the summer following the end of the war depicted in amateur film seems to be a summer of family day trips and leisurely pursuits. And while VJ Day didn't come until the 15th of August, many families at home had begun the slow adjustment to peacetime. And I mentioned it already, but there are several really lovely glimpses of colour in today's film screening. One showing a wedding in Southampton near the start of the war, and the other cataloguing the Shepherd's family celebrations. We've also, I think I included some of the Dig for Victory footage from Charminster School. Again, another example of how the filmmaker chose to kind of reserve his or her colour film stock for those really special moments. These days we get more used to seeing colour footage, just because, you know, this is in colour. I'm in colour right now, which is good because you can see my bunting. But we get used to seeing kind of World War II in colour. It's something that's proliferated a bit. But in fact, in terms of the collection, it's quite rare to see early colour footage. Colour film stock was really hard to come by. And I've spoken to more than one filmmaker who's kind of told me anecdotally that they managed to get their film stock from a friend of a friend, and it was all very kind of hush-hush, and it was a little bit on the quiet. Just a couple more minutes to go before the film premieres on our YouTube channel. So I will finish a little bit before that start times to give you time to click on the link and head over there for it to start. I've put all of the details of all of the films to be included in the compilation in the description of the film, but I will just quickly run through it now anyway. So you have footage from the Shepherd family in Poole, their kind of footage is spread out through the compilation. We've also got footage of the Home Guard in Winchester. We've got the RAF wedding in Southampton, that's the colour footage. Also Swaddling ARP, the Air Raid Precautions and Auxiliary Fire Service. We've got evacuees arriving in Winchester from Portsmouth, and Anderson Shelter being built. Shot groups, so footage from Elliott's of Newbury, who I mentioned we had footage digitised as part of our Working in Shadows project. We've got lovely crystal clear footage from there. The Port of Achievement, footage of Southampton celebrating their achievements during the war. Charminster Mixed School, as I mentioned. We've also got Bishopstoke, a parade for VE Day, and a lovely street party, which is really worth checking out. We've also got the Victory Day parade in Romsey, which was actually filmed. The collection is Mr. Turner's collection, and there are notes on file to say that his wife filmed it because he was still away at war. Again, we've got some more shepherd footage, and we finished with some shots of Nancy Beeling picking poppies. Nancy met her husband Frank, and when she came as a member of the Land Army to work at his nursery in Burgess Road in Southampton. And their film footage reflects a summer of kind of contemplation and kind of relaxation as they adjust to peacetime. So I will stop talking now. I'm going to end my live stream. So do click on the link and head over to our premiere that's taking place on YouTube right now.